Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Fallout 3. Let's continue. So we found this armory and inside of it was a lot of radiation and a lot of guns, but also there was definitely a lot of choices made there to just force locks. But I mean, it doesn't even matter. You're not going to find a book or a bobblehead inside ammunition locks. So forcing them and breaking the locks just to save a little time is at worst affecting my odds of getting a little bit more XP. And we've been so precious up until this point as far as getting XP that I don't think it matters to try and speed up this process. I suppose worst case scenario, we might have to get the item, the perk that lets you double try on broken locks um and such, but get the perk for that and for computers. I honestly think there's probably only been maybe 2 or 3 computers in this entire game that we've locked. Probably less than 3, actually. We are walking somewhere. Is that the right thing to do? Yeah. I mean, we could certainly fast travel here and then walk to there, but we'll just take a leisurely stroll. I can't help but admit that in the last recording it was weird that we found alien ammo in the place, and anything alien has to do with one of the DLCs, but then it didn't do anything more for that. At least when we ran into the runaway slave from the into the Pitt DLC, there was like a whole conversation that happened, a whole obvious pointing towards the desire for the player for you to go and do that DLC, and that you would take some time and it would be a while until you get back to the main overworld. And this is, I guess, just another city. We'll find it. And oh, there's just so much to this game though that has elements that aren't really fully revealed when you run into them. We found a shelter door right when we got out of the main game, the first Vault 101, and just that shelter door never meant or did anything. Here's a scavenger.
Let me take.
Let's see if she can repair something for us. And let's see if she can
the price is right,
sell
make
some
me an offer.
things. She has like 150 gold. What could I buy from her? Basically nothing. Nothing of real value. We could buy some flour and see if maybe we could get the items we need to make the Mississippi mud pie once.
Thanks. Yeah, see ya.
She's just a standard scavenger. So there was a city like this, and inside the city there was a model of a house inside of a house, and that had a button that said activate, or it looked like it could have been activated, and yet you couldn't activate it. So again, that may just be something that is a main storyline element that will go back to that area. That was the minefield area that we ran into fairly quickly. Just look at the local map and see if there's actually any doors or anything. Nope. Doesn't seem like there is. Some radix is just worn off. But clearly things should be more important. A basketball is apparently in this mailbox. Like, some things should be more important. There should be more of a focus around all of that. Like, you shouldn't be able to walk and wander through a like bombed out neighborhood like this and it not at least give you some kind of hint towards something. It basically feels like what they've done here is they've created a city. There's something over there we saw run by. It looked like a bear or Uguay. Like, it seems like they just felt a need to put a Uguay, I mean, not Uguay, but a city here to justify that there's a vault somewhere in this distance close to this area. There's a couple bobby pins, that's helpful. This game also fails pretty miserably in having bobby pins, I think, show up in the metal boxes. If bobby pins were in that pool of items that could be in there, I would have a lot more bobby pins. So yeah, you can have a pretty simple mod, I think, where you just give the player more bobby pins, get rid of a lot of junk. It's all that really needs to seem to happen. Almost wonder if that bear that we saw fly by here was actually a bear or if that was supposed to be a hallucination. But there's no reason for me to be hallucinating at the moment either. Yeah, here we have a Talon Company mercenary. And this was the scavenger.
Like
oh, it is a Uguay, but it's a Uguay that is working with that guy. Okay. And it kind of feels like the Talon Company mercenaries at this point are becoming fewer and fewer and further between. They still show up fairly frequently, but they are coming less often in groups of 3, and they've long since stopped being any kind of real threat. I don't think they were ever actually supposed to be a real threat, just an annoyance for doing the right thing. And arguably, on one hand, the game shouldn't probably punish the player for doing the right thing and not blowing up Megaton. On the other hand, you could say that it actually isn't a case that you're being punished as much as you're being rewarded. This is Comferga Factory. And here we have another big parking lot, which we don't see a lot of that. We don't know what Converga is. Is that an auto manufacturer? Okay. I hear a whole bunch of rad roaches. crawling around. Nope, ants. Alright, this is the Converga. Driving paradise. There's a speech book. Lying congressional style. Which thematically that makes sense. These giant soldier ants. Strong enough, I guess, to hold back a couple shots. Here you have another town company mercenary, which at that point makes me think that this may have been a town company holdout that has been overrun by ants. Well, I can see and hear a bunch of them. I can hear a bunch of them, I can't see a bunch of them. So that might explain why there's only one. There was only one town company guy back out there. And if this is a stronghold for the town company, then it might be a point in which we find a lot of resources. Because the town company definitely seems strong. Strong enough to hold their own. But not really strong enough to even be considered like a real competitor. Like when you think about it, man, this is moving in a very herky-jerky motion. I feel like the game is going to crash. A memory leak issue. Since I've left this game paused for a while, it may pop up and the game may just crash. Like, yeah, at no point is there a real thought here that town company could take over the wasteland or even be major competitors to the Death Claws and the Super Mutants or any of the other people. They are just one of the unimportant factions. I don't find the crawling sound effect particularly creepy here, but I think that's what they're trying to go for. If anything, this crawling sound effect really shows how the rest of the characters should be. There should be a fairly loud, fairly obvious sound that plays when other characters are creeping and crawling around. So, seems like you have a split path here that then remerges back through this door, going for more of a linear thing. And this is a raider, so that does make me wonder if there is going to just be a large collection of different things, different dead bodies that maybe the ants are bringing back to the nest to feed their young. And we don't have another quest more than likely where we would need to like come back and plant some kind of monitoring device in one of these egg clutches like we had for the Murloc area. That's kind of comedic, but also kind of pointless and annoying to open the door and find nothing there. So down to a dungeon we go. This one. This one. This one. And this one. This will be like the first time we'll have any point where we can actually make use of our skill that resets the action points when something dies, and having VATS target multiple people. But this can't be an infinite amount of ants. Like, it just doesn't work if this was a shooting gallery where I could and just like continuously target. You can see the amount of XP we're getting is now grinding down to like 2. So yeah, a decent amount of ants, all of which will just have ant meat on them. We'll have to figure out if there's anything else here. So we saw a car dealership before, and now we're seeing parts of these cars that have been all around. Had the cars not existed at all in the game, then you wouldn't have the little explosions when they occasionally get shot. Tires are kind of new, and 200 years in the future, the rubber in these tires, excuse me, almost certainly the rubber in the tires would have turned to oil. So that's not realistic unless this factory is actively manufacturing tires. But yeah, I have a hard time really feeling like this needed to exist. But since they had already made all the 3D models, and maybe they shouldn't have, these metal boxes are the ones that should have bobby pins in them very often. Like, you would only get a high number of bobby pins if you just never tried to lockpick anything. And if you never tried to lockpick anything, then you would miss out on such a significant amount of XP that there's, I think, very little chance that you would then be able to make it to max level. But then you have this problem where these hallways are empty and don't really make sense. If you could have traded all the car 3D models for one more enemy model, even if you didn't program a new AI, and it was just a bigger bloatfly, a bigger ant, some albino ant, for instance, like we saw the albino rad scorpion, which that is really just a skin color change. There's a Nuka-Cola in there. Like, I would be happier with that trade-off, particularly since I wouldn't have known what I was missing anyways. I think they want me to go to the store behind here. But yeah, I also can't complain too much about the cars existing, which then would lead to the idea of having a factory to show where the cars were assembled, because that explosive action and the mini nuke action that we see when we shoot a car. Well, we don't have anyone here telling us not to kill this ant queen, so let's kill this ant queen. So we can at least see what would have happened there. Ant queen pheromones. Cool. Yeah, we don't really have a quest around any of this though. It just has no reason to exist. That being said, there's no reason for it to not exist either. Most of the places we've gone have been fairly devoid of ants, and I would say definitely devoid of ant queens. Here's another book, a couple of humans. But yeah, boy, do I just want more game here. More of a quest. I should have walked into this area and it should have told me find the ant queen and kill it. Shooting that car doesn't make it explode. I imagine none of these cars would actually explode because it's such a small area. Yeah. Let's see, what's the best way to get back up? But yeah, I would have expected that you would have walked in here and you would have found a piece of paper or a note or something just telling you that you should go in here and kill the ant queen, or that there's some big reward rumored to be hidden here, or you run into a person that would tell you the same thing. Does this have anything to do with the ant agonizer, or is it just a case that this happens to be the place? This door was on the other side of this area. This region of the world map is the region that seems to be mostly focused around ants. And maybe narratively wise, this is supposed to be maybe a source of the ants that came to kill the antagonizer's parents and drive her crazy. But I'm having to personally write my own headcanon for that to be true instead of the actual game telling me that. And you can't really have a narrative around the ants. Like, fire should spread and it should explode. And a nice little mushroom cloud. So you can see how this is a experiment. I feel like I'm hearing billiard balls bounce around also. So that's not a nice little experiment on what I guess enclosed combat might have been like if there had been a lot of that style of cars all over the place, and how that could have been a deadly booby trap. But ants don't eat cars or damage them in any way, nor do ants explode in any way. These aren't even the genetically modified ants that breathe fire. Like, you kind of need some level of like suicide bomber ants, something that would be genetically modified to explode in this facility if that was going to be the concern. Like, otherwise, player would just have to be fairly awful shot and not using VATS to accidentally hit a car. Okay. Local map blocks this door. Desk has some more bottle caps. There's just nothing here. And even the radiation from these cars is missing. Either it would have been there for a few seconds and it's already dissipated. What this was really failing to show you too is we're seeing the exterior chassis of the car, but we're not seeing the interior mechanisms of the car. What is these nuclear engines that end up in these cars to, like, what is this engine? How does it produce its thrust, as it were? I guess we have to just leave the way we came, because yeah, there's nothing here. Have I been everywhere? I think so. We didn't find a bobblehead, but we did manage to do fairly well. There's no storyline, no notes or anything as far as descriptions of the car or anything like that. And while it could be kind of funny to just blow up these cars. Their system not implemented well. They really aren't. All three of them blew up at the same time. See, that should be like a really nice animation. And here we can see the radiation is already gone from this car. And the radiation's already gone from these cars. So it is kind of a very brief amount of radiation on top of that. This truck will blow up but not start on fire. There's a real question here. Why is there not some kind of quest that is like shooting fish in a barrel, where you do have some kind of protected alleyway and you're up on a sniper's crow's nest and shooting at cars and exploding them, defending some choke point? Like, you could imagine the Enclave marching down a street and that being a real thing. These things don't explode. It's kind of a obvious mistake here. As much as they're trying to invoke that 1940s mentality and having cars be things of almost worship in that era, they don't actually manage to have that many cars or have that much interesting elements around the cars. Alright, world map now. Move to Vault 108. That's that way. So here we go. You may very well not be able to walk into Vault 108, or we may walk in there and just find yet another vault that is already open. Perhaps they should have just given us a quest to blow up all the cars. A nuclear deproliferation. Here is a different model of a car. We kind of think they would have talked about that, or talked about their competition compared to the Converger. Even having a single factory dedicated to one model of car, or one brand of, I assume it's a model of car, not a brand of car. It's not really what I would expect. I would have expected the factory to have several different cars available for display. And here we have a different car that, again, suspect all of these are right next to each other. So there is a general easy location to have the player go if he wants to see a bunch of cars. Well. We've got this guy shooting at me to start with. Just line up the line and shoot myself. Okay. So it says I am 100% behind Vault 108. So we see an unfilled in triangle here. Let's walk around this cave. Yep. There it is. And we have another vault and another signs of a lot of death. Seems like wastelanders tried to live in here. Maybe got taken out by mole rats. I moved the vault door control a little bit. We have some small burned books. Blood stains. Tin cans. The tin cans, since they never play any role, should either have A, not existed, B, there should have been a quest to collect tin cans for recycling, or C, you should have been able to transform tin cans into one shim, or even one tin can into one shim instead of bobby pins for lockpicking. Even a slight conversion of tin cans for one bobby pin would have been fine. This is, again, we're gonna barely get like 10 XP or 2 XP. Got a whole bunch of giant mole rats running around. Stealth boy. So we can go to the living quarters, or we can go investigate the rest of the facility first. Here we have Gary 42, and we'll take his jumpsuit. And if that's Gary 42, then I suspect, if I recall correctly, we're going to find some other Garys. More mad science. It can kind of feel like the Star Trek slash like the original series of Star Trek in particular, Twilight Zone influence on this game. That you could, particularly when you get into the vaults, you're just going to have an experience of mad science gone wrong. And even in Star Trek, since that's a space sci-fi story, there are limitations on what you can tell, whereas Fallout has created more of an emphasis on mad science gone wrong than any other format. And at a certain level, if there was better writing and no gameplay elements, you could tell practically the same story. Cloning lab. Alright. To the cloning lab we go. So we found the Gary 42. We're going to a cloning lab. I think it's fairly obvious where this is all going to end up. We're going to find a whole bunch of Garys. And cloning definitely does feel like a viable solution to potentially repopulating the world post-nuclear fallout. But cloning the same person is definitely not going to give you genetic diversity. If that technology even begins to potentially work, then that is definitely the carrot on the stick to convince other scientists to continue down the path of researching cloning.
Ah, Gary.
So this is who? Gary 17. And all they can say is Gary. And then he attacks us. So he has made himself. Gary has cloned himself to the point where they are pale copies of the original, I'd assume. Or they've just gone crazy living amongst copies of yourself. Which I could certainly see that also happening. Like having to face your own humanity, your own inequities, definitely could be maddening. But you would expect, once you found out cloning was real, that forget Project Purity and purifying the water, there should be a Project Noah that has you running around collecting blood samples from every person, DNA from every person to potentially respawn people. Gary 12. We saw 42. I doubt we're going to see 42 Garys. We'll keep taking the... There's 43. We'll take the jumpsuits, just in case they're not in good shape. Then we may end up tossing a bunch of them. If there is a bobblehead in this facility, what bobblehead would it be? Is an interesting question to think about. Suspect there might not be. And this is another one of those one of these vaults where there's a lot of kind of obvious observation windows where people are doing experiments. I don't think there actually is a Vault 69 ever shown, but it is talked about in one of the overseer's book notes, or one of the notes somewhere. And in Vault 69 there's like supposed to be like 69 female members and one male member. Yes, and they did have to lock it so each of these characters. Interesting, Gary number 1. I was thinking Gary number 1 might be special. But no. He's just as aggroed as anybody else. It would have made sense for Gary number 1 to give you a quest to go in here and kill all of your clones. The only difference between Gary number 1 was, hey, there is a bobblehead.
Huh? Gary?
So, how do we get in here?
Gary!
And I'm not really seeing a reason that charisma. Nothing says pizzazz like a winning smile. Charisma has been permanently increased. So, I believe that's one of the specials. We may very well have only one more special bobblehead to collect. And we only have about 5 of the I don't want to describe them as not special. We only have about 5 of the skill bobbleheads. Were they perhaps trying to do some research to use dead bodies as, I don't know, some kind of way of making even more Garys. But you also run into the problem with this story in that we've been told by Uncle Leo that the super mutants are genetically engineered. So now we have clones that are genetically engineered and super mutants that are genetically engineered, and there is a lot of question as far as whether maybe some other people aren't genetically engineered too. We're finding a lot of different outfits in this vault. So how would you address this is an interesting question, as far as, is there a way to make this dungeon a little bit more interesting and not just a place where you run and kill a bunch of things? A bunch of Garys. Cloning log, let's read that or listen to that. Gary 53 is hostile toward all non-clones, as was the case with the previous 52 attempts. We have to consider a means of disposal of the pre-existing Gary clones, as the observation rooms are getting quite full. Tim 54, Gary 54, still no change. If anything, he's even more hostile. Dr. Peterson can attest to this, having been injured while examining Gary 54. Tomorrow we're going to dispose of several of the Gary clones, with which will leave room for more attempts and all salvage data records. The controller rotates, by the way, whenever I step over something. The Xbox controller vibrates, and that's pretty much the only time the controller is noticeably vibrating. Although in all fairness, the rumble feature in the Xbox 360 is almost never noticeable by me anymore. I appreciate it almost on a subconscious level that it exists, and it's a box to get ticked off, certainly, but it has lost any actual interesting sales value to it. And if they were to come out with a new controller that was way better in a lot of other ways but didn't have rumble in it, I might that may not be a deal breaker. Here we have another barricaded area, which I assume you're just not going to get in there. And these are interesting ideas, certainly, but they are inconsistent to such a high level that when you do find a door that's barricaded, it just is a slightly annoying oddity instead of a surprising quirk. There's just nothing in here, unless I'm supposed to shoot the generators. I've got so many bullets, just doesn't matter. It would be probably an interesting twist if it turned out that everybody in a Fallout game was actually a clone, and it wasn't 20 that it actually wasn't 2227, which is the time this is occurring in. And I believe Fallout 4 happens 10 years after that. But it was actually 2427, or it's even later. That'd be another way you could bring in the Vault-Tec people and say that they're manipulating things.
Look out,
Gary
Gary.
33. 2 headshots. Rad Roach. Gary 32. I'm just really mowing these people down.
Gary? Gary.
Let's see. This does just feel like a joke. Joke gimmick concept, and not a story that you could take any further, really. Whereas if this was a Star Trek story, you would land on a planet of clones, and then, well, actually there is a Next Generation episode where they land on a planet of clones, and then the clones ask the members of the Star Trek Enterprise to donate their DNA to increase the genetic diversity of their world. They decline. Arguably, maybe not making the best argument as to why they're declining to give their DNA. And then they kidnap the people and steal their DNA. And then after the Enterprise people realize that their DNA has been stolen, they come back and demand it be destroyed. And throughout that, there's a whole nother group of people that turns out are on a different colony that are genetically compatible to have old-fashioned sex with and just procreate the old-fashioned way. But the other group of people are technologically like hundreds of years behind. So it's one society that's very high-tech and one society that's just an agrarian farming colony. And so they don't... That's a tiny little rad roach. They don't want to actually integrate or work with each other. And Enterprise effectively leaves them no choice. Which, I guess at a certain point, that whole story, if you aren't just taking it for face value, which I imagine a lot of people may very well have just taken it for face value and not thought of the deeper subtext. But for the time that episode would have been released and who was writing those episodes, that clearly is a anti-genetic purity message, and anti-segregation message. The less technologically advanced society was supposed to represent basically African Americans, where the more advanced was supposed to represent white genetic purists, whether you're talking like Aryan race purity mentality or just KKK, no mixed breeding, mixed marriages, purity concepts. And then the whole cloning aspect to the story, and the fact that story was even sci-fi at all, really didn't play a major factor. But at least it's telling a story. Where the story here is as simple as science has gone wrong. We've built a vault with a bunch of clones of Gary. Gary's going to attack on sight. This makes, at best, an Aliens movie equivalent. And not even a particularly good Aliens movie. So what would you do with a quest like this? You would probably write it in such a way that all the evens and all the odds started fighting each other over some religious dogma, and you would have a Gary preaching as a preacher saying the evens are evil or the odds are evil, and then there'd be like a church and state separation, schism. And yeah, and that would be kind of closer to the original Star Trek series where there's people that their faces are half black on the left side and half white on the other side, and then there's a whole different flip of that, and there's a race where the black is on the other side and the white's on the other side. Otherwise they look exactly the same, and yet that's enough for the two factions to be embroiled in a bitter war, which obviously even that episode, everybody got the message there. So arguably, if you are going to have slight influences from sci-fi, why not steal better? Why not tell a better story? Like, and arguably, if you could make a Star Trek game using an engine like this, it wouldn't be terrible. But put phasers in the hands of the players instead of laser guns, obviously. The open world element of it would have to be kind of rethought, certainly. So we went there, there, and there. I don't think we've missed anything here. It goes to the cloning lab. And we looked at everything in the cloning lab. And that's just it. There's no big surprise. There's no story. There's nothing. Unless we are given a reason that we have to go back to the vaults. That seems ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a main story quest that makes us go to like one vault and that's it. So let's look at our items. But yeah, just no story there. Absolutely no story. Want to wear the Ranger battle armor. Ranger battle helmet versus combat helmet. None of it matters. Okay, world map time. let's go walk this way. Yeah. This would be the part that if you were going to try and make more of a Star Trek story, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. The walking around on a surface and encountering just drastically different places. You could certainly have a narrative conceit for that. You could easily have a character like Q collide a bunch of planets, or combine a bunch of societies onto one big planet. That would work fine for the open world element. And for the enemies you run around here, as far as death claws and such, you could like have your intelligent Romulans and Klingons and Ferengi and just standard character Borg, species 8172. All of those characters could be wandering the overworld, but then you could also like have them mentally de-evolved and driven mad. I don't think I can remove...
Target identified.
Yeah, I don't think I can remove his combat inhibitor anyways. And that was another example of... I would have gotten a couple more experience points if I had shot these two in bats first. We're walking towards the capital wasteland, and something is running up behind me. It's just not going to be worth my patience, frankly, to try and grind all the way to a max level if I have to wander around the overworld shooting things. But I don't think that will be a problem, really, because between DLC and other elements, seems like we'll... Rock Creek Caverns. Alright. Looks to me like there's something here. This was the overworld area we were going to investigate anyways. And then Friendship Heights. And we'll see if we can get National Guard Depot, some of these other areas, and just see if they are actually accessible from the outside of this more walled in area. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is more a case that one of these drops us into a more open world, and then we find these other things. And then there's just this Chrysler building, which I guess the Chrysler building is probably the other car manufacturing competitor, although it's not going to be a factory, that one would assume. It's been a long time since we've walked through one of these facilities and found anybody just willing to talk to us. And that definitely leaves you with the feeling that I am definitely doing the B tier content of the game. Apparently there's a medics. Can't even see it. And we'll continue to take scrap metal whenever we find it. So there's a way down, and then there's a door. Let's see where this door leads. This is more of the Mirework region. So that got us around the gate. We'll have to use the local map, I think, a lot. I don't know if this is just a case where this would have potentially been a more difficult fight earlier and it just isn't a difficult fight now, or if there's something else going on here. How come the guy's walking backwards up the stairs? Just because he's facing me, I guess. Far too cautious of a character, though. The animalistic nature of a lot of the characters we shoot in this game, if you were going to try and turn it into like a Star Trek game. And I'm just picking Star Trek in general because if you were to try to make like an anthology series like The Twilight Zone or anything like that into a game, they would have to be pretty well episodic levels. And there's been attempts at that. And arguably it hasn't succeeded as well as it should have. Okay. I feel like we are getting deeper and deeper somewhere, and we may have just missed a small section, but whatever. If I end up potentially having all but one bobblehead, and then I know the one place where a bobblehead can only be gotten once, so as long as I get to that bobblehead before leaving that area, I think I'll be fine. This feels like this is a big experiment in turning a really big cave into or having a really big cave in the dungeon. So we'll have to keep a kind of large eye open. Let's see, was there anything you could do over here? Walking in the water. Like the Deathclaw area, it makes a lot of sense that these areas would be bigger because they are bigger enemies, but it gets fairly overwhelming very quick. And the idea of walking in water and never swimming in water is another concept that they could have started with and embraced. Like, I don't know if there really is a necessity for this game to have swimming mechanics. Assume that was the path, and we may have missed something else. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And if I wasn't at max level, almost certainly some of these would just be Mireworks. Getting 25 XP every time we kill one of these is a nice amount of reward. And here we have ant meat being depicted, and rotting Brahmin, carcasses, and egg clutches. Did we mostly see everything over here? I think maybe, but maybe not. Yeah. I like the idea of more shallow pools of radioactive water. If practically every dungeon had a pool of radioactive water and you were just always walking in it, it as just another form of mine booby traps, that would be a great way to remind people that, hey, radiation is a thing in this game, and you will need to take the rat away fairly frequently, because that shouldn't be an optional thing. Like, even if you get your rad resistance up really high, you should still have to deal with radiation throughout the entirety of the main story, and probably the entire game, since it's storyline-wise so important. Like, all of Project Purity spins around the idea of radiation being horrifically bad, and yet we don't see anybody outside of the beggars even really suffer from radiation, and we tend not to really suffer. And here we have a wastelander that's glitching. Physics are broken, and I assume the reason why the physics are broken here is because they have multiple limbs that are being considered as somewhat separate yet attached parts, and then they are under the ground, and the ground generally just probably has a rule that if something is underground, move it forward with increasing acceleration, and that's often how you get glitches, is because they increase the amount they accelerate upward when something is stuck in the ground, when perhaps they should just move it 1 pixel at a time very slowly upward, as if it was just slowly rising up. Like, if it was moving at 1 pixel at a time, a cycle, or probably would also prevent a lot of glitches. Of course, that also might mean something is very deeply stuck in the ground and it takes quite a while to adjust. Often we see the exact opposite problem, though, where things are floating above the ground and then physics kicks in and gravity kicks in and then they fall downward, and that glitch also has problems. But arguably you could have also fixed this by simply just not having these characters procedurally placed. You don't need to randomly generate what this wastelander looks like, and it may be the case in someone else's playthrough that this wouldn't be a wastelander, or it would be a different face model, different clothing, but there's kind of no reason for any of that. Instead, you could simply place these on top of the rock, exactly right, exactly how you want it to look, and then remove the tag, which more modern engines definitely can do that. You can just turn off physics as it would affect them and glue it in place, or at least only turn on physics when the player is actively interacting with the body. I don't know if there really is that much value in being able to potentially grab a body and drag it. Like, clearly Bethesda thinks being able to do this is really, really cool. But have I ever actually done that in gameplay? No. Am I really getting anything special from doing that? No. Well, I think there's a lot of extra stuff built around the edges here as far as these plateaus. A lot of things that you just can't reach. Maybe I'm being a little lazy and just making that assumption, but I'm gonna stick to that assumption, and I'm gonna take it to mean I probably looked at everything here. There's maybe something here I missed. Otherwise, we need to go and check out this and then go back where we were. And it certainly would be nice if there was a quest or a reason why we're even searching this. It's kind of unlikely that it will be a bobblehead. Let's see. It's just blackness there. I walk here, and I walk up there. Doesn't seem like it. So that would imply to me, unless there's an underwater passage here, which it doesn't seem like there is, that would imply to me that there is nothing here. Again, it would have been easy for the game just to tell me to eradicate all Murlocs. Mirelurks. Not Murlocs. Murlocs are actually a Hearthstone frog creatures. Oh. But yeah. If I had just been given the quest to specifically try and kill all of the enemy species throughout the game, and then there was just a number, and then there was some helpful systems to point to areas where nests are, and that's really what it would boil down to. Is they wouldn't have to tell you to kill everybody. They would say just investigate all the nests. Then I would have a very basic, very general reason to be here. Still kind of seemingly missed this whole middle section. Okay. Try that again. Seems like it's going to be just very slightly in one direction if it's easy. And there's a harmonica on top of that. Metal box. Just kind of no reason for that safe to even be there, or for any of this stuff to be here. And this guy has his spine ripped off. Yeah, am I missing something here? Or was somebody just living here? Like, it feels like somebody was just living there. It definitely feels like this is, Yet another case of them not really telling or showing a full narrative. Like, sure, I can take away from something like that a generic message that it's not particularly safe. Like, yeah, okay. I can take that generic message. And that anywhere anybody tries to live is probably not particularly safe. So yeah, you just can't mark this map because of this big rock outcropping. But we see that message far too often. We see dead bodies all over the place, skeletons all over the place. Yes, in the first, I would say, hour or so of gameplay, we found out that this almost feels like that would have been a secret passage to reset things. Yeah. In the first hour or so, we found out that it wasn't particularly safe in the wastelands. They are harping on that message at this point. And the number of rads I have is probably insignificantly small. Alright, we missed something. But it does kind of seem like we probably are just going to leave this whole area and go back where we came from. And that this is just a pointless little side dungeon quest area. Yep, this was all that was down here. So, had I exited out through some other door, there would have been really no lost content. There's just a lot of places here that feel like they might go somewhere, but probably don't. Okay. Next place, we'll see if we can walk this way to reach it. This is interesting. There might be a bit of difficulty getting up and around this hill. Not that much difficulty, but we are getting dangerously close into the walled section of the capital. I think it probably is a slight mistake to have potential things that you can find on the other side of the walls, because it's just such a big area already. It's a little wonky that the game would want you to wander around here and investigate these outer sections. And this is oddly like a city with houses instead of giant big things. National Guard Depot, well, we can see that. We can see military. Let's see. Is there anything worth looking at? Also, I think you would just walk this general direction and they would say you can't go any further in this direction. This might actually be where the Alien DLC starts. I'm not sure. One thing I'm noticing about this, though, is the houses next to each other, that's kind of what I wish the Wasteland was more of. It's just more of this, blocking your view, making it so not aliens, but enemies aren't going to run at you from a kilometer away, a mile away. More of a city urban environment is what I would have preferred. Interesting, it just popped in. More rubble blocking the way. Which that's fine. I would rather these sections be walled off versus the game just telling you you can't go any further in this direction. Even at that though, they still tell you you can't go in that direction. But yeah, I would have liked to see a lot more cities like this that probably would have established a better idea around how unimportant these buildings would have been, instead of them being so rare that they feel like they're important. If I was just always walking by them and generally was assured that there wasn't going to be any items of importance in them, maybe you could get some more bullets in them, stim packs, but nothing important. Or if I was going to be sent into one of these city areas, one of the housing areas, they would give me specific quests. It's probably not even worth your effort to search these metal boxes. This is labeled as a crate, by the way, not a metal box. Okay. So we've got a Protectron, which is nothing. And then another Protectron. But yeah, that makes sense. We may find that I am fairly overburdened for going into this area. I think this definitely could be a area that has a decent amount of weapons in it.
What's up, Wastelanders? This is Rydo. Wow, wow, and you're listening to
Let's see.
That's Galaxy News Radio. Let me ask you something, children.
So this is, I assume, where people would go to enlist. And I hear kind of a refrigerator sound. We can hear a robot.
Downtown DC ruins in response to increasing sightings of everybody's favorite freaks, the super alert. Hostile detected.
That took a lot of bullets, but none of it matters. Who's shooting at me? A turret.
Scanning for hostiles.
So the spy listening station, or maybe a radio training facility, spy training facility, possibly. So it seems like you can kind of get the high ground on these robots, and this is another area where I think have another area where you have a good reason to have robots be the focus of the enemies. It's oddly vertical. Let's see. Pre-war books. We have a robo brain talking to you.
Hostiles in area.
We're getting radiated a little bit. Apparently I got crippled at some point. Or concussed at some point. How are we on radiation too? It's not even really worth it to do the rat away.
Do not make any further escape.
Well, this may have put me in a dangerous situation. I may have to see if I can sneak my way over. Do you want to get all the scrap metal? We can. Yeah. But this is definitely giving more of the feel of just general offices compared to like a military depot full of weapons. But there might be some of that hidden in the depths of this facility. Interesting, this desk is not a desk. Alright. Let's continue on our path downward. And this is going to be one of those areas where local map is going to barely be useful at all. We're going to go through this door and this door, and that's about all we can guarantee. We'll try not to run into a lot of stuff that we miss or overlook, but it's going to be difficult. Sentry bot, his head flew off. We were going to come over here and I think hack this. Short control system. Might as well. Wandering 3 something correct. Skip all this stuff. Now, one thing I will say that was really cool about BioShock, which takes a lot of these concepts and does something very different with them. It takes one science has gone wrong and only slightly expanded from that one concept of science gone wrong in a few ways, but it mostly just figures around the idea of plasmids and atom, and that's a much better story that is told over the course of 60 hours compared to the unconnected stories that show up in this game. But when they needed a hacking mechanic, they didn't go with the idea of, oh, we'll just have a hacking mechanic. They instead took the fact that BioShock was a first-person shooter and used that to their advantage to make a hacking gun with a hacking dart, and the hacking dart being just a element to the dart gun, so that you could shoot other kinds of darts. Now, in fairness, yes, there is a hacking mechanic, and it's used fairly infrequently in BioShock without using the remote hacking dart. Store is activated elsewhere. Utility locked very hard. I'll try that. Nope. So, if you were to, in this game, have a remote hacking gun, that would have been nice. Even in BioShock, the fact that there is still a way to walk up and hack things is still leaning on old mentality. Right, so something is going to open this door, and I feel like we're going to end up having to come back to this area. Right. Where are the doors? Because we get all turned around here. And they've got to be probably higher up. So how can I go up? I don't think I'm supposed to be able to go up this way. Yeah, it's a little surprising there isn't a quest to just like collect flags. Like wouldn't that have been a fairly obvious quest? Collect at least one copy of the flags. We've got music playing all over the place. Clearly they wanted the music to kind of constantly be playing as kind of a background thing. But we do run into major problems with that, in that this game is glitched and the music doesn't always play right when playing out of your own radio. And they don't really tell you to turn on the radio. But I think we have to also be honest here. There is not in any way a major improvement if music was playing in the background of this game all the time. That would maybe make it a little less frustrating and give you, let's say it even gave you like 10 more hours of the game not feeling like a monotonous, repetitive RPG. That doesn't save you in the next 50 hours. There's really nothing that's going to fix that other than just realizing this game is too big for its own good. It's too repetitive for its own good. And I'm not sure I really believe game developers ever learned that lesson. They seem to have learned it a little bit. They've tried to optimize and such, but like Dying Light 2 is about to be released, and it may even be out as of me speaking, and I just haven't checked up on it in a couple weeks. But Dying Light 2 caused a controversy by them trying to sell their game and announce their game as having over 500 hours of gameplay, and using the hours of gameplay argument as a metric of value, when really it is not a good metric of value at all. National Guard Armory should be right behind me. And then Dying Light 2 then had to come back and re-clarify their statement, say the main game is like 20 hours, which arguably is also too short if you're gonna start using those metrics. And there's just not a good number you can advertise now that would be a good sales point. There's kind of no reason to advertise. Like, gameplay hours may still be a metric that is negotiated between game developers and such. So this door, but that doesn't mean it should be used as a sales point to consumers. In my opinion. And I imagine this game probably was sold as having a lot of gameplay hours in it. And that probably was a much more appealing concept and idea when this came out. But having played this game now twice, or once, not quite fully once now, and doing a fairly abridged playthrough compared to this playthrough the first time I played this game, I can say in both instances I found the game to be, well, I found the door, and so I'll take it. I found this game to be over long. Would have been very easy to have left some of this on the cutting room floor for Fallout 4. This isn't even a game that is of the era where it would make a lot of sense to need to have players continuously play a game. There's no like reoccurring subscription fee for playing this game. There's no DLC. DLC came about kind of as a way to keep people from selling their games used to GameStop, and in a short level trying to give a longer term amount of enjoyment to the player. Although, in all fairness, even from day one, a live DLC clearly was taken out of the main game and then resold to people. But it would be very hard to believe if this game had half of its missions taken out that a lot of people would choose to have come back to this game after taking a significant break. once you've done that main story, you're going to have your maximum level of satisfaction with this. And coming back to the DLC of the Pit and such, this game did have DLC. Come to think of it, I don't know what I'm saying it didn't, but it is the old-fashioned DLC. It's not microtransactions. I can say that much. But I would suspect over half of all the people who bought Fallout 3 played the main game, never got any of the DLC. Like, at that time when I played it on the Xbox 360, I was definitely not in the habit of putting credit cards into the internet, and I would have been fairly suspicious of that. And I definitely didn't enjoy the game when I first played it enough to have potentially thought about buying it a second time in the Game of the Year version of it that would have included the DLC. So stairs that go up, and then turrets protecting something over here. So what are we gonna find? I'd imagine weapons. Bullets. I wish there was more of this. Shells that would have had bullets nicely placed. Guns. A whole bunch of guns. All of which I'm not even gonna bother to take, but combat helmets. I'll take the combat helmets just for silliness sake. Yeah, I wish there was more of that. Yeah. This game specifically could have removed half of its content and it still would have been a 60-hour game, and most people would have still been fairly satisfied. Particularly if you glitched the forcing of the lock there. Particularly if you don't. Oh, so we have a little shooting gallery here. I forgot. I've now lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was going to say. Zooming in the chutes, not gonna really help. I'll take the sniper rifle. We'll become over encumbered. This definitely feels like a very unique area. We're not crippled anywhere, are we? No. Okay. So, combat helmets. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is one full combat helmet. We'll drop the rest of them. Weapons. We will Repair that one. Repair that one. Repair that one. Repair that one. Drop that one. We will read that book to increase our speech, which I think is already at the max. Okay. Donovan's wrench. Scrap metal. Basically an infinite amount of bullets. Let's see. Speech is at 100. Unarmed is at 72. Sneak is at 69. Melee is at 72. Big guns is at 94. Energy weapons is at 98. It's kind of sucky that using an energy weapon this much isn't increasing our skills. You'd think that you would just naturally learn and become better. Need the local map. Let's see, scrap metal. Yeah. You would think that you would want to kind of come to this area fairly quickly. That this would almost be something that you could come back to and visit multiple times and practice. Or at the very least you would see this layout and this design used in some other places. Maybe some raiders tie some people up they've kidnapped and shoot them. Use them for shooting practice. Something horrific like that. Let's see. I'm not even bothering to look in ammunition boxes or mine boxes. It will look in these, however. A lot of junk still. This is going to the depot offices. But we don't have a quest, so we don't have a reason to be here. And it doesn't feel like we're gonna even find anything. You would expect when entering this that there would be kind of a change up. This might be more of a trapped area. The offices kind of look almost like a maze, but it's not really a maze. And we don't have any enemies, not raiders or anything, that move fast enough to need to really dive into these areas and duck and try for some like duck and cover tactics. Just picking up bottle caps now, just for a huge number. I think if you're gonna make a game so open designed like this, you do probably need to give more of a consideration to a player that might have 20,000 caps. Like, give me something to spend it on. To do something with it. When a system is this broken, figure out something. Let's start here. That didn't work. So I assume this was the turret control for the turrets we've already shot. Because only 2 matched and it ended ing and everything else ended ing, I knew it wasn't any of the other ones that ended ing.
Security sweep in progress. Lethal force may be used without warning. Alert. Hostile detected.
I have still yet to figure out how to defeat these sentry bots. I kind of feel like they are just designed to be bullet sponges. I'm not seeing any people here. Which all the blood on the floor doesn't quite make sense. All the Nuka-Colas don't quite make sense if you were gonna imply it was just security robots in this facility and nothing else. This dungeon is a step below what a vault dungeon is because they haven't really even bothered to tell a story in this case. Yeah. And there should be a story here of something. Some comment, some note, some character, dead body. People potentially lining up. This makes no sense for that to be here. And then these desks look like totally new. Again, you could have had a quest here where it started a Mr. Gusty talks to you and tells you all the robots here need to be decommissioned. Notice there's a glitch here. You can just see to the void on through the cracks. Yeah. If Mr. Gusty said all these robots have gone crazy and refused to stand down and need to be decommissioned, and then you had a quest to go through this entire area and shoot all the robots, that'd be great. If you had a quest to collect an American flag or collect files. If some of these Mr. Gusties were reprogrammed by the Chinese and it was like a trick to steal information because the robot is still working for the Chinese or thinks he's still working for the Chinese, that would be interesting too. Here we've got another book. Radiation. Well, I'm gonna check the maps. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a good quest. Just give me something. Just give me any reason other than my own obsessive compulsiveness to have come to this place and fought all of these people. You know what? Let's see what happens if we shoot the legs. We've never tried shooting the legs before. Nothing. Maybe we should shoot the arms and the weapons. I can't even really make a complaint saying that this section we're doing right now is not varied or different enough compared to other sections of the game, because this is a little different. It's not amazingly different. We've seen desks, we've seen robots, we've seen every single thing we're seeing here, certainly, but as much as variety goes in Fallout 3, this is somewhat varied, and yet it sure doesn't feel that way once you are this many hours into the game. I almost envy people that can get bored with games and quit them. Now that would be a terrible way to play games if you're going to be a YouTube video game critic or a video game critic in general, to get bored with things and quit. Although, in all fairness, a lot of mainstream video game journalism is exactly that, where they play the games for a couple hours, get bored, and then write a review. And there have been several instances of people complaining about parts of the game that are not consistent throughout the entirety of the game because they just didn't get that far. Alright, well, the thing that's going to be weird here is, unless this gets us to a different area, which it does seem like it has, I still may have a problem here. Like, we've looped around and this is supposed to be a shortcut. There's an electrical switch that oddly turned on a light, a big orange light, and we can hear it going beep beep beep. Right. This is back to where we were. And then down here. Where did you come from? Alright, let's try the right arm. So you can cripple the right arm of the character all you want, he's still gonna fire at you. Alright. And in here we have a switch that is going to take us down and into the actual armory, I guess. Unless there's something more to this. Store is activated somewhere else. There. What are we expecting here? More weapons. I wish every shelf was this nice. This should be the standard. They should be clean and easy to view or well lit. Yeah, I get the some of that doesn't really make sense. It should be broken, certainly, but when you see how nice this looks and how this is the only time we've been able to see it like that, my instinct and desire is definitely for more of the game to be like that. I think what you could have done is you could have had a scenario where you had, let's see, could have had a scenario where shelves that looked good like this were the shelves that had items to collect on it, and then shelves that were damaged. That's what purified water looks like. I don't think we ever see that on a shelf again. Empty syringe. Just a whole bunch of missiles. Missile launcher. Assault rifle. Yeah, I think you could have balanced it out that way. This is just another location that you would have been a nightmare to actually try and get through if you didn't have way overpowered characters like I am. And we do have a bobblehead here for small guns. It's easier to have courage from a safe distance away. And before we hack this and figure out what is behind this door, we're going to have to repair a bunch of things. I'm taking all of these because ooh, sniper. I'm taking all of these because I feel like they probably will work well together to get a fully repaired version of everything. Ranger battle helmet. Could use a combat helmet instead. What we could do is drop some of this stuff. Like that. We don't need. Rangers battle armor. You can get rid of. You can drop this other combat armor, I guess. Do we have any aid items? Should have a few things. Like we could drop all of that. And we can drop all of that. We can read that. Yeah, you could drop the stealth boy if necessary. Do we have a whole bunch of miscellaneous items? I don't think so. As far as our small gun skill, fairly certain that that was already at 100. So, nothing of big importance there. I'm going to take these combat helmets and see if I can use them to repair the Ranger battle helmet. Yes, I can. Right. Which means we can drop that. Okay. Bunker access terminal. Incorrect code, access denied. So this is the code. I bet. Remember, we had this note. Where is it? Keller family transcript.
Mom, it's Candace. Oh my God, it's really happening. I can see the cloud. It's so big. Mom, I'm so scared. I'm heading to the vault now. I'll do whatever I can to get inside. My number of the passcode was 7, right?
They're talking about a vault. Where? I guess this is the vault. So we may have to just get the code. You can't obviously just look it up, unfortunately, or just brute force it. And it doesn't feel like there's another way in. Alright, so we will leave that. And maybe the main story will bring us back to this whole area. Or maybe there was a bunker access code that I just missed. That is a possibility. I mean, I guess anything and everything is a possibility. What was the way in and out?
Residents haven't come out to trade with the caravanners, and attempts to make contact have been met with silence.
Grey Ditch.
So if you're out by Grey Ditch, you may want to pop in and see what's what. Until next time,
Who's this guy?
You're not involved in this. You want to keep it that way.
Brotherhood Outcast. Alright. So they're saying the Grey Ditch has gone quiet. Where? Which one's Grey Ditch? It's not the slaver colony. It's gonna be so hard to find any specific plays now that everything is marked on the map. There's just no familiarity here either. Like, I have no clue where Grey Ditch is. I think it's probably somewhere closer towards the center. Feels like a place we would have visited fairly early. Have we not been to Grey Ditch? Let's... like, yeah. It would be easier, frankly, to just look up where Grey Ditch is on a map. And on a digital online map and find it that way than it is to use the map in the game. And I'm fairly certain we were in Grey Ditch at some point. Did I kill everybody in Grey Ditch? Why did I kill everybody in Grey Ditch? Would be the questions. Because that is my general assumption, is that some twist happened and I killed everybody. So it's supposed to be Friendship Station, Friendship Heights, and it seems to be like Raiders. Which is a little surprising that Raiders would be in this area. And the rocket launcher guy is about to fire another rocket at me. So you have a super mutant lying here. You have ash pile. Yep. And it seems like they just have a little bit of an outpost here. And that's it. Just on the outside of this walled section. It's just a little raider outpost. We are increasingly finding better layouts of items, and I don't know if maybe that's just my level. Perhaps now there's just always going to be 3 rounds of 10 millimeters instead of 1 round of 10 millimeters. Or perhaps this is just supposed to be a more difficult area. Though I can't imagine this would have been that difficult of an area. Baseball glove, Nuka-Cola. Okay. And see, that would have hit these areas, and then we need to figure out if this takes us back to an area we've already been. And the local map should tell us fairly quickly. And yeah, it does seem like this was an area we investigated already. Let's see. So that was the National Guard depot. Getting in here, I think, would just be more difficult. But that is what we're going to have to do, is we're going to have to get to the White House. We're going to have to get to this whole Penn Avenue East Mall Northwest section. We don't particularly have to do it all now. We still have this building. Grey Ditch, Grey Ditch, Grey Ditch. Isn't Grey Ditch Arlington? Because we had the super duper, and then Yeah, I think Grey Ditch was Arlington, so. But there's nobody in Grey Ditch either. Maybe we should go check on the scientist. I guess that would be the only thing we really could do. Alright. First thing to do though is travel to Megaton.
Yeah? You need something?
And the second I level up, I'm going to take the puppies perk unless they just offer some other perk that's way better. And then we'll actively bring the dog with us. So we are now only missing L. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other bobbleheads left to collect. Weapons wise, we will give that and 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 that. We'll just throw everything in there. Now cast power armor helmets. Recon armor and the jumpsuits. There we go. Over here, we will drop the items that are taking up space. We're down to 90 now. You're not going to get much better than that anyways.
Good evening, madam. What can I do for you?
Nothing. Just get out of the way.
If there's anything you require further, feel free to ask, madam.
Major visual glitches here. Baseball glove, cup, death claw, empty syringe, vision, flower, harmonica. And we have a whole bunch of scrap metal. And we'll want to rest and get some more XP. We can move all rads. It's probably not even worth my time to do that. It's probably not worth my time to even come up here anymore. And we need to wait a few hours so it's not in the middle of the night. Okay. What would really suck is if it turned out that there was another shopkeeper that sold bobby pins, particularly in Megaton, and every time I have come to Megaton, I could have just walked to another area.
Do you have any scrap metal for? Yeah. What is it?
Right.
Well, all right.
143 XP. Still worth.
Well, back to work.
Still worth turning those in. And I don't even think I have anything really to sell, so I don't think we have to worry about that because I just dropped everything instead of even trying to sell it. We could make it to 30,000 caps from the look at it. So we want this area first because this is the most disconnected area we haven't been that we still think we can reach. And then there's a lot of work we could do in Arlington, and clearly a lot of stuff we missed in Arlington. I'm uncertain as to how much of it is going to be big or interesting. We have like Talon Company mercs over here just fighting with laser against super mutants. Yeah. More of this probably would have been better instead of just walking around empty areas. Like, if you could literally just run through a battlefield and people wouldn't bother to attack you because they're too concentrated on something else, fighting someone else, that would have been kind of great. That's the end of that. Who is talking? I have no idea. I don't think it's worth it to even walk over to the other character. Alright, where were we going? This way? Yeah, I think somewhere over there is a wandering trader or something. And really, at this point, it's just getting ridiculous. One thing I think all RPGs, particularly like Pokemon style RPGs, should embrace is the idea of, if you are a high level character, that should just give off an aura that scares away people from shooting at you. Like, at this point, I've killed so many raiders, and my weapons and equipment should just scare away other raiders from shooting at you. Like, make them run instead, or just put their hands up and say, I surrender. Anything like that, I think, might be interesting. This is weird. We don't see a lot of these, so why did somebody bother to either license or make a 3D model of those? Yeah. If these raiders just took one look at you and ran, or stayed silent, or said please don't shoot, anything like that, I think that would, I don't want any trouble, things like that would, I think, help you not have to grind and attack people that you don't particularly want to grind and attack. That being said, you then need to create a system that addresses how you're going to get XP via peaceful means. Right now the system is kind of a punishing system where the better you get, the higher your level, the less likely you are to get XP for killing something if it is low level compared to you. So if somebody says, if somebody said I don't want any trouble or I surrender, you could, and then you walked away from them and didn't kill them, that should give you like a pacifist XP, maybe a very small pacifist XP, but you should be rewarded for doing what is right, or for having already grinded. It's not like you would turn a game like this into a complete pacifist capable game where no violence would be enacted and no shooting would happen. You would still have to be over leveled severely, but it wouldn't hurt to have some optimization. And if you can't figure out a pacifist way to do that, then just do what most other games do. Throw even higher levels. Put some super duper mutants masters on the level and give me 100 XP for fighting them. That's something I think Borderlands does fairly well, is that they give higher levels of the same characters even if visually they don't change. I guess the fact that the super mutants have Chinese assault rifles does imply that they might have some connection to the Chinese, but the Chinese don't really play a major role in the story. Like, we found two dead Chinese spies in the entirety of the game so far.
No more games. Time to die. I'm hungry.
Probably shouldn't have started this whole area, but because I really wasn't, still not quite there to feeling like I'm 100% of doing 2-hour, 3-hour recordings. I still also am getting the big crick in my neck issue. Like, I must tilt my head ever so slightly, and I probably do. And the neck pillow I got, I'm not using, so it's my own fault. A lot of bookshelves here with nothing on them. Again, telephones, another item that didn't really need to exist. One thing I think I can suggest when working on any project is if you make you should have a list of everything in a project, or in this case, programming. So there should have been a master list, some kind of Excel sheet type list that would have been for every single type of item in 3D menu. And I would say the game producer should have kind of a tight eye on that list, and if that list is uncomfortable to read, if you're getting 250 items and you're going down that and it's just like, oh, this is too much to even read, well then it's obviously going to be uncomfortable to actually deal with in the actual game. And you always want to be kind of careful. I probably should have lockpicked that door. Yep. Yeah, you want to be careful not to let things get out of hand, and this definitely feels like a game that let things get out of hand. Very much so. Lower offices are down this way, and then the basement is down somewhere else. I'm kind of moving a little too fast. It would be a little shocking, and I guess it just always will be a little shocking when we find those last few bobbleheads. I mean, it can't really be.
The settlement has been hit pretty hard lately by a marauding gang of riotous ruffians. But it would seem that after 101 made a little solo sojourn into the murky depths of Moresty Station, the attacks stopped. The cherry on top? She emerged a short time later with a lad named Ian West, who presumably had been taken captive in the latest raid. So what happened down there in the stinking, slinking subway tunnels? Friendly chit-chat? Or a classic case of shotgun diplomacy? In the end, I guess it doesn't really matter. Arafu is quiet once more, thanks to the efforts of the Lone Wanderer from Vault 101.
See, he's talking about like me dealing with Arafu. That was a incredibly long time ago. Feels like there's probably a whole second floor we haven't seen here. Do we want to try and get up there? There could be stairs almost anywhere. Here they are. Yeah, I vaguely remembered seeing stairs. Have we been up here? Were we already up here? I think we may have already been up here. No, I don't think I have been up here because probably was stepped in that bear trap. Just trying to run through all of this really fast. And very little chance of that happening. This door would have been open. So we see everything? We started from that direction. Everything is already mapped out because of the way these floors overlap. I feel like we had already dealt with these because there was like a way up here, I think. Either that or I just shot him. This is going to both be irritating if I do get all the bobbleheads, because I'm going to have to obviously go to every single location and maybe a few locations a second or third time, and it's going to be irritating if I don't get the bobbleheads, because then that all the effort we've spent trying to get them. Oh, undone. Yeah, there's a tripwire. Maybe the bobbleheads should have just been like a wandering trader purchase for a high price. That wouldn't have been a terrible thought to make it fairly available, but expensive. That would put more value in having caps in this late game situation. I guess the general idea is that going upwards there would have let you drop down here and get past this door if you broke the lock and locked yourself out of the computer. Rearm the trap, disarm the bear trap. That time it doesn't give you XP. So you can't trick the game that way to get XP, which wasn't expecting that you would succeed at that, but it might have been interesting if you could. Just going through all these bobby pins. And we have a rotting Brahmin corpse. And a desk. Some bottle caps. It's just like nothing here. Here, an angry dog. Hmm. 66 XP for that one. Take my sweet time to get into vats. Okay. Feels like this floor would just fall through, or that there would be some kind of secret passage there. Yeah. It definitely feels like any progress I had made finding bobby pins is being eroded at these very hard doors. And a lot of destruction and a lot of decay. You start like right here, probably. Really trying not to break the bobby pins. It's worth the XP. I mean, I really cannot argue against it. I don't know why there's so many very hard doors. Yeah. I don't know why there would be so many very hard doors in a row. Like, clearly this would be a place where you'd not want to visit until you have your lockpick at the max. We've got 4 bags and strange meat. So, cannibalism all over the place. Let's see if our local map points to anything. Strange meat is fairly valuable if we can actually trade it later on to the fungus and the little lamplight. At least it's implying that it will be fairly valuable. See, I kind of had forgotten that we were even fighting super mutants.
Listen to this. Now, the Lone Wanderer, aka that kid from Vault 101, has done some pretty interesting things, but this one takes the cake. My contacts report that he recently went on a highly dangerous excursion to recover, drumroll please, a violin. Oh, but not just any old violin, children. We're talking Stradivarius.
So now he's talking about the last quest I did, but you would expect that they would have talked about that a lot more often. The problem here is you would prefer someone to just straight up thank you and talk to you for finishing a quest more than having 3 dogs sing your praises. And yeah, on a rare occasion you do have somebody say thanks, but more often than not, you're given very little reward. We just have these gore bags that you could try and grab things from them, but let's see. Master key from the super mutant overlord. I don't want to particularly take the master key, because my fear is if I take the master key, then that would open all the other doors. Although there may not be that many more doors. Notice how the mysterious stranger is not going to turn and shoot the other guy next to you. He doesn't have any kind of AI tracking. Yeah, that was a waste of bullets. Okay. My mind is so addled right now. I'm really running on empty mentally at the moment. So I'm afraid I may just miss something of importance. Not just sugar bombs, for instance. Yeah, we've got this whole map. And it says we came into the reception area. And I guess we're maybe supposed to jump down to the basement, or maybe we were in the basement. There's all kinds of desks, and it's not even so much what's in the desks as what might be on the desks. I really do feel like there's potentially just a bobblehead. I'm just gonna take the master key. There needs to be a book or something. This goes down here. And again, I'm not doing a good job at all as far as seeing tripwires and things like that. Although, in all fairness, you really are asking too much of the player to Yeah, you're really asking too much of the player to see the tripwires in these kind of dark sequenced areas. All kinds of gore bags. Up here. And this does feel like an experiment in just having more things. Like more broken floors. We just got 10 Nuka-Colas and it turned into a Nuka-Cola Quantum. Stealth boy. Okay. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna have to continuously look. See a door this way to the basement. Hmm.
What rhymes with shoes and often gives you the blues? That's right. It's time for the cashews. Okay, that doesn't really rhyme. How about news?
Hmm. Here's an interesting thought. There is a cup here. Cannot shoot the cup. Hmm. Yeah, I'm mostly gonna have to take this as there is basically nothing here in this lower part, and it was just an area to get to the basement. And what's in the basement? It's yet another section of the map, and we're going too long. And I think what we'll have to do is just call it here. What you're not going to run into is a like super mutant behemoth. Oh wow. For the first time in probably 50 or 60 hours, we actually were on the verge of dying. Not that that's really going to be a problem, since we have a massive amount of stim packs. So it takes two behemoths, or two overlords, not behemoths, in a row, and me just trying to rush. Tri-beam laser rifle. Named weapon. A tri-beam laser rifle does look like it is way better. See how this goes. So we'll have to keep an eye on the local map and just see how far this goes. Because I think this probably is going to go fairly far, but it may not. Well, that felt quicker. Of course, there's so many laser piles now. It's got fewer shots in it, but that really wouldn't matter. Just be a little bit more reloading. This is gonna really, really suck if it turns out I missed something. So I'm hoping this noise is leading me to something important. I suppose the Converga car is supposed to be like a Chrysler or something. No, this is probably the Chrysler one. I don't know. I'm not an expert enough in cars to even know the equivalent puns that they're trying to go with. What it's not going to do, though, is give you like a pristine version of a car that you could use to drive around the overworld. I don't think they ever had any intention of having working cars. That would be a bridge too far. It's not going to give you any kind of skill or perk that would interact with that. It seems like there's nothing here. How could we... Like, that was pointing me in this general direction, and there's nothing more this way. If we look at the local map, as we're going to now have to work our way back through all of this, it seems to me like might be something over this way I didn't investigate. Either that or the map is just not filling in itself. Bunch of cows, bunch of Brahmin. But oddly, the radio is disabled, and this was the trapped area. If we go back, didn't go through this. And the game is locking up pretty badly there. Should probably do a safety save. These guys are just right next to us, and they're not making enough noise. Now, this gun, the bullets this gun is using is a little low at 1500, but that's not really any concern. Take that. Looks like we've got something important in the safe. So No. But I wanted you to be able to get into this safe. There could have been a version of this game where everything was computer controlled, and that would have been the only way to get into saves, and the lockpicking mechanic was just missing. Reception area. Lower office area. Seems like the game is saying we came in through both of these doors. I think we probably want to leave through that area. That being said, I think I also want to just investigate this section a little bit more. Yeah, we didn't go deep into this area. Gun cabinet. Baseball glove, pre-war hat, scrap metal, empty metal boxes. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's anything here in this boiler room. So did we look everywhere else? I think we did. So I'm still a little confused. Like, we found some stuff, but we really haven't found the book. We really haven't found anything other than this gun. We found all these locked, very hard rooms. There's a chair we could sit in, which means nothing. Have we been to this reception area? Apparently, we have the key, and so maybe that could have been lockpicked. Yeah. So I either boned that up pretty badly, or there's nothing in this entire dungeon. Which, maybe there is just nothing in the entire dungeon. What this does for us is the Chrysler is probably Chrysler, and then the other one, the Corviga, is probably supposed to be Corvette. Well, I think I've probably had enough with the I've probably had enough with super mutants for a while, so I don't want to go and do all of this. I want to focus on Arlington, and we have pretty much done everything else. There is, I guess, maybe some small argument to trying to do more of the main story, but that would just be because I'm bored. Alright. 1, 2, 3. This guy is just hiding behind the post. Single bottle cap. And Talon combat armor. Talon combat armor. Talon combat armor. Okay. So somewhere just in the middle of this, directly in that direction, is the Arlington Cemetery. And to get into Arlington may just be a lot more difficult than it seems. But honestly, I guess that's a problem for the next recording. We may just have to work our way through the flooded metro and come out, or we may just have to fast travel through a lot of these areas to reach where we're trying to go. Yeah, that is definitely going to be a problem for the next recording. But for now, yeah, I'm frankly half asleep at this point. Yeah, there's no, I couldn't even do a proper recap at this point. Yeah, let's just save, pause, and call the recording. Been 3 hours and 12 minutes. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.